Hey, what's up, everybody? Got a short, well, maybe not so short video. Just a special episode, we'll say, with Anuraag Dawes in the Legacy Double Dash series. So this is first a Miracles deck, though maybe it's more accurately called a Miracle deck because there's only one Terminus in the main deck, second in the sideboard. So the tournament organizer, Tim Schultz, sent me the videos of both of our sides. And I wanted to do a commentary over this match because I thought it was pretty interesting. And there's a couple key plays that I at least knew from my end kind of helped determine the outcome of the match. And I wanted to talk about some of my decisions and stuff like that. So let's hop into this match here. It's going to be a little bit small on both sides, but so here we have our opening hands. The first thing I think I need to address with this hand, or this keep, this keeper mole that I end up deciding to keep, it's that it's really borderline. This is a type of hand that I would not keep at all in the blind. I'm on the draw. I don't have a 1-drop, which is normally like my primary kind of criteria. Like if you don't have a 1-drop on the draw, your hand has to be really good in some other special way. But the thing about this hand is, knowing Anuraag's deck, he's got 2 Okos, 2 Uros. Those are really his only threats. He's a Teferi, he's a Narset, some Ice-Fang Coatls, and a bunch of dead cards. He's got Flusterstorms, Spell Pierces, Veil Summer main deck, just like a lot of bad cards in the matchup. And so this keep was based on a couple things. First of all, Piledriver is one of the best cards as far as actually winning in the matchup, because he doesn't have that many profitable ways to interact with it. And then we have a Matron to find Ringleader in a pretty timely fashion. We have a Rashad Port to slow him down, and we have a Cavern of Souls. He also has 1 back to basics main, and this hand has access to 3 basic lands. So the concern about mulliganing this hand is that you get one of those like 1 to 2 landers with Vial, and if your Vial gets forced, or since I'm on the draw, it could even get pierced. I don't actually remember if he had a Spell Pierce main or not. I think he did. You're just in a much, much worse spot than this kind of land heavy, but you're, engine intact hand, and you get to ignore counterspells the entire game. And you'll see that as this game's played out. Anuraag's hand is very good. He's got 2 lands, an Astrolabe, Ice-Fang Coatl, Brainstorm, Force of Will, Uro. Like he's got quite a good hand here. So like his hand is good against both of our common 1-drop starts, right? It's got a Force for a Vial and a Ice-Fang to block a Lackey. So his hand would be cold, soft to turn 1 Cavern Lackey, turn 2 Gem Palmer, Munitions Expert, the Ice-Fang Coatl. That's what his hand is risky against. But he does have an Uro to stabilize. So he goes turn 1, Island to Astrolabe. Draw another Astrolabe. I draw Karakas. This Karakas ends up being pretty instrumental in how this game plays out here. I play the fetch, I believe. Or I think I just play the mountain. I don't think it really matters because the fetch might get a bad lands eventually. It's unlikely to, but it might. He draws another land. So I guess his decision is Astrolabe or hold up Ice-Fang Coatl. Draw a second Piledriver. So before, I was thinking, I'm going to play this Piledriver on turn 2. I'm going to play Matron on turn 3, Ringleader on turn 4. The second Piledriver makes me want to sandbag the first one, because now I can do turn 2 port you, stop you from playing... The scary thing here is if I play the Piledriver and he goes Plow Piledriver, land Oko, I'm really far behind. And if I get to port this turn, that means I get to resolve my 3-drop before he gets to resolve his, which is a really big deal, I think. So I decide to wait a turn and port instead of playing the pile driver. Because what I'm trying to set up is turn 3 matron for ringleader, and then he'll expect me to cast the ringleader on turn 4, and then I can go pile driver, and then on turn 5 I get to play the ringleader and have the pile drivers already in play, not summoning sick, to benefit from the haste of the ringleader. So you're kind of making more effective use out of the haste that way. He draws a snare, another land, and a ponder. So he's doing what blue decks do, you know, cantripping, spinning his wheels a little bit. Hopefully this looks alright for you guys. Looks like it should. So he plays his fetch. Doesn't want to get wastelanded, obviously, so he plays out the Tundra. Second Cavern's really nice for me, because this means this pile driver's not, the second pile driver is not going to get forced. So here's where I make my move. Matron easily grabs ringleader. I don't think there's really another option, given that I have 4 more lands in my hand, so I have mana for days, really. It's just a matter of getting enough gas to use all that mana. So he draws a plow. And I'm very purposely not playing out this Caracas for as long as possible. Obviously, the sequencing of my lands, I wouldn't have had a reason or, you know, any clause to play out the Caracas yet, but I'm very cognizant of it. So he plays out. So he gets another plow off his cantrip. So he's looking really good. He plays his Uro. Find a Narset. Narset doesn't do a whole lot, so... But, you know, his hand is pretty stacked. Draw Sling Gang, quite nice to have in the long run. So I could have played Ringleader here, but as I said before, I'm trying to set up double pile driver into Ringleader. So he brainstorms, and here's where he starts to having some mana issues. So he brainstormed and he just bricked. I mean, he hit Oko, which is good, but he can't play the Oko with the 2 pile drivers on board, and the known ringleader in hand. That would just be suicide for the Oko. He would just be trading an elk with a pile driver. So he just passes with double plow up. At this point, I kind of expected him to have 1 plow. I wasn't really thinking 2. So go for the ringleader here. And tapping so as I don't have any red, I don't have any like tar fires or anything like that, so the cavern is the last land to be left open. And Ringleader gives me Munitions Expert and a Goblin War Chief. So War Chief's kind of nice. And I go swinging in expecting one of these pile drivers to get plowed. I get kind of punished because he does have two plows, which is rough. So this is obviously quite a good turn for him. He gets to eat my Ringleader with the Ice-Fang Coatl. So now I'm down to only 1 creature on board. However, I got this kind of ace in the hole with this Caracas lurking in my hand. And I believe he was brainstorm locked, so he can't try to play play Oko and hold up a theoretical removal spell, though he doesn't have one. So he goes for the Uro, which obviously makes sense. So he knows about the War Chief and the Expert. So he draws, hits another Force that will never be cast, and just has to pass it back. So him being stuck on lands is really rough for him. Because, yeah, his hand's chock full of value, but can't really do anything with it. I get to... And seeing that he's didn't put a land into play off Uro and has missed the last couple of land drops, I am all about Jam War Chief and then keep porting. Because now this port is looking really good. Because if all of his good cards are 3 mana, like almost every single one of them, all of his proactive cards anyway. So reducing him to 1 proactive play per turn is quite strong. And there's porting here, I'm like, okay, I guess it doesn't really matter. But theoretically, porting the forest is optimal here, because if he wants to, if he has to like tap one Astrolabe to do something, and then if he wants to cast a blue or a green card, he has to tap the other Astrolabe. So if like Oko came down, he would have to. He wouldn't have a non-tapped elk target on his side of the battlefield. This comes up later in a more relevant way, but since he has Ice Fangs, doesn't really matter. But still, he's still bricking on lands. He just draws more Teferi. So like this is a weakness of this kind of Miracles build, is that it's extremely clunky at times. He's just on a like mono 3-drops. Like he's got what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 5 3-drops in his hand. 3 Force of Wills that don't do anything because Cavern of Souls is really good. So he discards 2 forces. I draw a Trashmaster, which is kind of interesting. And since he didn't plow my War Chief, I'm pretty sure he doesn't plow, because then he wouldn't have to discard a card, right? He would discard 1 less card. Though in a sense, I wonder if discarding is like okay, given that Uro, I don't know. The Crocus kind of makes Uro a non-thing. I think about porting now. I wonder if I forget if I do port now. I think if I do port now, it's a mistake, because I should have the read that he doesn't have plow, or else he would have cast it to avoid discarding to hand size. Yeah, so I do not port. Play my fetch, crack it. Just thinning slightly. And now I'm just pretty fully on the offensive. Since he only has 1 Terminus, I'm pretty willing to commit into a sweeper. And this uses my mana very efficiently. Sling Gang for 3 mana, Expert the Coatl, and I still get to use the port. And I'm still hitting for quite a bit of damage. I get to hit for 7. And with the capacity to drain for lethal, or for another 6 off the Sling Gang. So port the duel. Doesn't really matter with triple Astrolabe in play. Just not really a relevant thing. So he has to hit like Terminus here, and he hits a Brainstorm, and draws another 3-drop. Goes Brainstorm. So he finally hits the land, but it's a little too late for Anuraag here. If he had 1 more mana, he could set up a Snap Plow here, which would be pretty strong. But this 1 port really, the port and him, I mean, he did look through quite a bit of his deck. He's down to 31 cards in library, I believe, and he couldn't find the 6th land or the 5th land any sooner. So now I'm pausing here in my draw step. So I draw another land, so pretty bad draws, honestly, after that start. I flooded out pretty badly. So now I'm thinking, okay, how do I lose this game? And I'm pretty sure the only way I lose this game would be Brainstorm Terminus right now. And so to avoid the complete and utter blowout of losing my entire board after I play the Trashmaster, I port now, force him to do something. So that, if he does Terminus me, I sack my board, and then I play Trashmaster, and so I still have something to fight with, because my hand's just all lands otherwise. So this is a port to inform my decision, because since he hit the land, I don't think the port affects him as much anymore, and I'm pretty confident that no matter what, the game more or less ends on this turn. So this cuts off the most amount of outs. So he floats, I pass priority, and then he is forced to flash in Snapcaster to try to stay alive. All of his other cards are Sorcery Speed or Dead Force of Will. So yeah, he has to flash in the Snapcaster with no value. Just skip ahead a little bit, and then I just play Trashmaster. Attack with everything except for the Sling Gang. And that is game, because if he blocks Trashmaster with the Coatl, blocks the War Chief with the Snapcaster, he takes 2, 4, 6, 8. let damage resolve. He goes to 4, drain for 4, or I can drain for 6. So no matter how he blocked, he was dead there. So sideboarding. I'm a little curious to see what he did, a little bit more than what I did, but I'll explain what I did. So sideboard relatively lightly for this matchup. 3 red blasts, kind of obvious for all the planeswalkers and the Uro if I need to get it off the battlefield, and the back to basics. 1 Relic Progenitus to handle Uro. He's only got 2, so it's not like I probably don't need more than 1 piece of Grave Hate, so I'm not going as deep as Surgical. And Relic Cantripping is obviously very good. And then I'm boarding out 1 Lackey, because I know he has 2 Containment Priests in his board, and between Containment Priest, Ice-Fang, I'm not confident in Lackey, really getting there exactly. Script Prospector. Script kind of induces you to commit a little more to the board that you might otherwise not, though his version, only 2 Terminus, not so worried about that, but it's also just kind of a low impact card, right? The Mog Fanatic, again, trades down with everything. Chain Whirler is the kind of controversial cut, I think. The cut between Trashmaster and Chain Whirler in this matchup is very, very close. So Trashmaster has merit in that blowing up Astrolabes preemptively or in response to removal can make Oko a lot worse because it doesn't have just a constant feed of Elks. And the Anthem can be quite good. He only has so many plows, but, it does trade badly into an Ice-Fang Coatl. It does... it doesn't have an ETB. It's just a 1-for-1, really. So it trades pretty poorly with Plow, right? Whereas Chain Whirler can wipe up Ice-Fang Coatls and Snapcasters, but it's a good bit harder to cast, even being 1 mana less. And it also, being red intensive, especially means that you might not be able to hold up Pyroblast when you cast this card. So you could get punished by, a Back to Basics or something like that. It's also, I've noticed, kind of awkward when Oko is on board, and it is close to ultimate range. That's a kind of a scary thing, whereas most games in this matchup, you want to try to ignore Oko if you can. You'd rather just go with their face, and then they make a 3/3 every other turn. It's not a big deal. So the Oko loyalty amount doesn't really matter. But Chain Whirler is a really good combatant, and if they steal it with the ultimate, you got to deal with this 3/3 first strike. And that can be a big pain to try to deal with. You don't want them to be trading, a food token for your Chain Whirler. That's really rough. So that's kind of the trade-off there. This looks like Anuraag. You got the Needles. This is really hard to see, but I'm pretty sure I know what these cards are. He's got a Needle, 2 Return to Natures, the other Terminus. I'm not sure what this other green card is. It might be like a Wilt. So brings out the conditional counter spells make sense, like Veil of Summer, Flusterstorm, spell. I believe that was a Spell Snare, and 1 Force of Negation. And then you still got to make 2 cuts for these priests, so I'm not sure what he does for that. My picture is a little bit bigger than Anuraag, so it's a little easier to read. So yeah, I'm curious what he cuts for these 2 priests, because I think they're very good in the matchup. They're one of the cards I lose to the most out of Miracles, especially because normally I cut Crater Makers against Miracles, but I know since he has 2 priests, I don't want to do that, so I leave them in. So he brings in the priests, and he trims what? Teferi. Teferi makes some sense to me. I think Narset is probably worse than Teferi, because Teferi bouncing Vial can be annoying. But you might think that with the Return to Natures and Oko and Containment Priests, he has enough answers to Vial. And Teferi is a really bad card in the matchup overall. It just does not do very much. Just a really poor investment. Bouncing. Many of goblins can sack their own creatures, so you're not even necessarily getting a card if you bounce something. Like a token, you can just sacrifice the token. And yeah, 3 mana draw a card, gain 1 life is not playable against goblins, right? You're just gonna get run over. Like a single pile driver kind of kills it with impunity, even with no other assistance if it minuses. And the plus can be situationally relevant, but with like a Terminus, but he's only got 2 of those. I think the Narset's slightly worse because it only draws cards and the passive is completely useless. Whereas like Teferi's passive with like Munitions Expert could matter. Could trip up a line or 2. So going to game 2, I've got a pretty sad hand. If this had 1 or 2, if this had 1 land, I'd probably keep this hand because the Vial's great, the Lackey's great. We've like a 1, 2, 3, 4 curve and a relic for Uro, and this is also a redraw towards a land. But Zerlander obviously can't keep. Anuraag's hand's very good. He's got Plow, 2 Ice-Fangs, and an Oko. Theoretically is a little soft to Wasteland, but not really. So my 6 is decent though. I've still got the relic. These lackeys don't have anything to put in, but he doesn't know that, which becomes really relevant in this game. And I've got my best lands. I've got my port, I've got my cavern, I got my basic. Happy with all those things. Just put back a fetch. I know my first fetch land's going to get a basic no matter what, so... And I'm happy drawing lands, not immediately. I'd like to draw some spells first, but I do want to hit my 4th and 5th land eventually. Draw Sling Gang, very nice. So he goes Plains, or Strand go. Cavern Lackey, pretty obvious. And he doesn't plow the Lackey. So he has Ice-Fang. So that's his thinking. So this is risky from his end because if I have Munitions Expert, Pyroblast, or Jump Home Incinerator, I get to put my creature into play. Draw another land, not ideal. And it is, I think about this a lot, and I'm like, okay, so he's got 3 Ice-Fang Coatls, 4 Plows, and 2 Containment Priests, and he kept 7. What are the chances that he doesn't have answers to this Lackey, and how many of those answers are bad for me, like actively bad? So Plow is a fine exchange. We're trading 1 for 1, 1 mana for 1 mana. He didn't plow last turn, so I don't think he has Plow. It turns out he does, but he didn't use it. So I was pretty confident on the read of having either Containment Priest or Ice-Fang Coatl. And for that reason, I was very convinced that's what he had. It turns out that's what he does have. So I just do not attack with this Goblin Lackey. I just play my Relic, and I play the second Lackey. And this puts him in a weird spot, because now these Lackeys are threatening the board whether or not there is an Ice-Fang Coatl in play, because he knows I have 6 ways of removing them. And if I have Chain Whirler, which he doesn't know I setted it out, then it's even more. And this Relic is threatening an Uro eventually, which is also, put some pressure on him. So I'd like to get the Relic going as early as possible anyway. I could have gone just like Port Go, but I think that's pretty bad because I could have gone Port Go, but I think it's bad because he just had the 2 fetch lands, so he could have just like not done anything. He could have just not fetched. And then I wouldn't be deploying more to the board. So he could play Oko here. I'm almost a little surprised he didn't. I suppose it is very bad against the blasts, which he knows that I have in my deck. And it could get punished. I guess no, that it could get pretty punished by kill Ice-Fang, and then I could just go like drop Matron, drop Ringleader. Like the things could go disastrously bad if he just played Oko there. So again, this is like the threat of Goblin Lackey. He doesn't know I don't have, like, putting in Sling Gang would be good, but not like incredible. So he's forced to play more defensively, even though jamming Oko there would have been okay. Though I would have drawn Ringleader, so I would have traded Lackey with the Ice-Fang, and the other Lackey puts in Ringleader, and then if that hits like a Munitions Expert, he's in a really bad spot. But he's just holding up his removal spells and his other Ice-Fang. So activate Relic first, so that gives him the least amount of choices. Play my Port. I don't really have anything to do. And again, he's got 2 mana up. He's got Priest. He's got Ice-Fangs. I'm not attacking. At this point, I'm thinking these Lackeys are sack outlets, or are coming. The way they're going to become relevant are points off of Munitions Expert, Pile Driver, or the Sling Gang. And so he flashes in the other Ice-Fang. So again, I'm like, okay, good read. Just don't want to deal with that. And then I think this is a really cool port spot. So you might think he's got an Astrolabe in play and 3 basics. What is this port possibly doing? So what I alluded to in the last game is that porting the forest here constricts him quite a bit because it basically forces him to choose between a couple different decisions. Where if I tap this forest, he can't use the Astrolabe to filter and cast like a blue spell, like a Brainstorm, or a white spell like a Plow, without tapping the Astrolabe, meaning he's not going to have green mana in his main phase. And if he lets it through, and he uses the Astrolabe in his main phase to cast a green spell like Oko or Uro, they wouldn't cast the Uro with the Relic in play, but Oko, then he's not going to have the Astrolabe untapped, meaning that he can't elk the Astrolabe immediately and get the untapped 3/3. So it reduces his potential, basically reduces the effectiveness of the first Oko activation. And I believe this induces him to Plow here, which is such a good trade for me. These lackeys were not going to get in this game unless I drew something crazy like, Jump Home into Expert or something like that. And not only does this get him to spend his Plow, and he's thinking about it, right? It's a close decision, but he feels like he has to use his mana because his mana is a little constrained here by this port. Especially if he has to play out this Tundra, then he doesn't have then a Wasteland actually sets him very far back. Because if I wasteland the Tundra and port the Forest, then he can't cast almost anything in his hand. He can't. That's relevant. He can't cast the Oko and he can't cast the Sevinnes. Draws a Force, which is basically a dead card, given that the Oko is his only other blue card. So he just has to play his other Astrolabe. So that I'm reducing his ability to be proactive by not attacking with my creatures. The threat of them is enough. So he draws another Plow. So he can attack with his Ice-Fang finally, because now he's feeling quite safe. Even if I went like Warchief Piledriver, he could go Plow Warchief, Plow Lackey. And I do draw Warchief. But here I think it's pretty solid. Go for Ringleader. I kind of regret not getting Badlands there. But that does walk into back to basics pretty hard. So this Ringleader hits Piledriver Ringleader, which is a pretty solid one. And now I'm even more incentivized to not attack with my stuff. I think I attack with the Ringleader here because I'm fine with the Ringleader trading with the Ice-Fang, because then that forces the other Ice-Fang to trade off with Lackey. So I'm thinking that he might not block, which I'm not sure if that's a correct read. So I end up passing because I just care about the bodies on board with the Sling Gang and the Piledriver already in hand. And he goes to the Plow and the other Lackey. This is such a good trade for me. Like, these lackeys, I basically don't draw removal for this in almost entire games. These Ice-Fangs would have bricked the lackeys the whole time. However, now his mana is unrestricted by the port, so he has kind of has full reign. He draws a Needle, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool for him. So bleeding these Plows, these lackeys being effective discard spells instead of trading with the Ice-Fang Coatls going down a card is absolutely instrumental to the way this game plays out. So he goes for a full swing here, so swing for 5. I'm like, easily take it. At this point, I'm thinking he might have another Plow, but he's already gone through 2, so this would be it would have to be the third Plow. Activate Relic. I draw the second Cavern. Second Cavern's really nice here because it lets me go Warchief Piledriver without walking into a potential Force or Spell Snare. And lets me keep up mana for Relic pop. If he elks the Relic, I might pop it just to draw a card. So always tapping in a way that represents Red Blast. But I believe, if I had Red Blast, I probably would have blasted the blasted the Oko, right? So I'm hoping I'll get a swing in with this. I'm hoping I get to kill Oko this turn. But he has the Plow for the War Chief, so my Pile Driver doesn't get to attack. But those Plows are basically his only way of dealing with Pile Driver permanently in his whole deck. He's got 2 Terminus and 1 more Plow. And Snapcaster is probably not going to work because I got this Relic on board, right? So I hit the Oko down for 2 because I don't want him ultimating it on anything. So that's a more matter of that. And I'm thinking I might have to kill this Oko rather than ignoring it, unfortunately. I'm still not sure if that's a correct read or not. So he draws the 3rd Ice-Fang, so that's the last Ice-Fang. So he's got kind of interesting decisions. So he's got, probably Elk, his other Astrolabe. Like, he's getting aggressive. He's feeling like I'm on the back foot. He knows about this Ringleader, so he doesn't want me to have enough time to, like, deploy that slowly. I think he's trying to, force me to play defensive. And then he doesn't know about the Sling Gang, which is kind of my ace in the hole in a way. So he makes those Elks. And this is putting me in pretty serious jeopardy, right? This is an attack for 8. But definitely not blocking with my Pile Driver. My Pile Driver is my win condition. And then he goes, I think he plays another Ice-Fang to draw a card. Or not. No. He plays the Needle. Plays the Needle. And I think about this not long enough. So there's a genuine question of, if I let this resolve, does he probably names Relic, right? Because it wastes my mana for the turn. And seeing how he has Sevinne's Reclamation in his hand, getting the Relic off the board matters. I end up popping my Relic, and you blind name Sling Gang, which is a very smart read, right? That's my best card in this spot. But I wonder if I'd been better off if I had let this resolve. Because I end up popping. Which is, it's okay. I draw Red Blast, which is really nice. Because now I'm like, okay, so I finally get to stop trading damage into the Oko, and I can start racing him. Draw Munitions Expert. So Munitions Expert now becomes my plan, because my thinking is he's not going to let me swing with Pile Driver freely, really, most likely. He's going to have a green. He's going to have an Elk. If this Oko is still around. So my first step is, can I kill this Oko? Can I blast this Oko and swing at him? Because now it's a race, especially with the Sling Gang getting needled. So pre-combat, the plan is blast Oko, see what happens. This is a pretty complicated turn. This is a hard turn to play. Because you have a couple options. You could attack 2 damage, attack with the Ringleader at the Oko, hit it for 2, attack with Pile Driver at his face, and then Expert, kill the Oko, save the blast for something else. That uses your mana a little less efficiently than you would like, especially with these 2 4-drops and no 6 land. And so I'm really thinking, how do I get the most on board possible and still not die? Because I do have to worry about clock here. He can put quite a bit of hurt on me. So blast pre-combat. And I think he forces here, basically out of the sense that this Force of Will never do anything. I think he's supposed to... He may have also been concerned about another haste creature, but maybe he shouldn't have. Because if he lets that resolve, and then I play my Ringleader and attack, then he can Sevinne's back Oko and kill me. But it depends on how I would play, I guess. So now I can clear the Oko, which ends up being very good for him, right? He's happy I'm doing that because it means that I'm not hitting him for 5, because ultimately killing the Oko doesn't mean anything when he has the Sevinnes in hand. So I tap out for my Sling Gang. So I wonder if it was, so if I hit him down to 12 and he still had the Oko in play. I don't know. I think this ends up being better kind of because of what he draws here. He draws an Ooze. So the fact he draws an Ooze here means that he would have had another green blocker if the Oko like elked an Ice-Fang and then he played Ooze. Because if he didn't have to use his mana this turn to cast the Sevinnes, that would have really sucked. So again, this is about double spelling. This is about tempo. So he knows I'm tapped out. He knows that I have a Ringleader in my hand, but he doesn't know about the Munitions Expert. So he goes Sevinne's back, Oko. I'm at 9, and the Sling Gang is needled. So my life total is under pretty serious duress. So he elks one of his Ice-Fangs. So I should have talked about why I played the Sling Gang over the Ringleader. So Ringleader would give me more options, but again, this is about preserving haste. So the Sling Gang represents blocks, first of all, which could matter, and like more efficient blocks than jumping with Ringleader, right? And also Ringleader plus Piledriver represents 5 damage, and is haste. Sling Gang. If I played Ringleader, then the Sling Gang would be much slower on the damage to add adding damage to Piledriver. So playing the Sling Gang now, the Ringleader next turn means the Piledriver gets +8/+0 instead of +2, or well, it'll be a total of 2, 4, 6, +10/+0 instead of it would have been just +4 because of the 2 Ringleaders. So this is a really tough combat step for Anuraag. So he's gotta pressure me because he knows I have this Ringleader in hand, but he also, is kind of close to dying this Piledriver. So it's a decision of how much does he respect my ability to clear an elk. So he elks an Ice-Fang, and obviously he wants to get the game over with. Like the flying from the other Ice-Fang is pretty relevant because if I let all this damage through, I go to 2, meaning that the Ice-Fang alone, the one flying one, actually kills me in 2 turns. And so he goes with this attack. He thinks about it for a long time, which I don't blame him for. This is a tough attack step because this is attacking me for 7. Putting me to 2. Because if he attacks with all, he very likely, he basically dies because he knows I have a Ringleader in hand. So he has to leave back a green blocker. Because protection from blue is just so relevant here. So I don't know. I think he makes the correct play of being aggressive because he knows I only have 5 lands, and at this point when he makes this attack I'm like, okay, I need to draw any land to win, because the way the math shakes out, Ringleader expert your blocker is exactly 18 damage because it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 off the Piledriver, 4 off the Ringleaders, so it's 15, and then 18, so 3 extra from the Sling Gang and the 2 tokens. So not blocking here puts me in the position to win. It is higher risk because if I whiff on the land and I just cast my Ringleader here, then I'm dead in 2 turns to the Ice-Fang, and that means he doesn't have to attack with the green attackers anymore. He just sits back and block. So I'm like, okay, I have to rip the land here, or maybe a second Munitions Expert would be very good. A Pyroblast would be pretty good because then I could blast the Oko expert the Ice-Fang, hit him for a good amount, and then block, and then counterattack again. So I just take all the damage. I go to 2. I take the risk. And then I do, in fact, draw the 6th land, letting me go Ringleader and to expert. Kill the green elk Ice-Fang and hit him for 18. So this is a really close game, like really, really close. Obviously, he ended up taking an aggressive stance that kind of cost him, but in a way, you know, it's a tough call because I very easily could have bricked, and his aggressive stance would have been paid off. So it's a close call. What I am really proud of in this game is that I did not attack with those Goblin Lackeys. Because imagine if those Goblin Lackeys traded with those Ice-Fangs, and those 2 plows that he used on Lackeys sat in his hand, and he had plow for Sling Gang, and he had plow for Pile Driver. If this Pile Driver got plowed, I would have lost. Hands down. This one Pile Driver did 11 damage, all in a single turn. And it killed the Oko as well, so 14 damage. So I think this shows how you're supposed to kind of play with Goblin Lackey in these situations and realize that you don't always have to attack with it if you think you have a really good read, and that you can make it trade, you can make it a duress. If you can make it duress for Source of Plowshares and force your opponent to use it, it was also due to his mana consideration. Support kind of did its role there, where it made him make a tough choice and constrained his decisions. So this is what you're supposed to do when your opponent has a plethora of removal available to them or ways to stop Goblin Lackey. You want to force them to use their most premium, most flexible removal, or at least bait them to doing it. Like, he didn't have to kill the Lackey, but he very easily could have been punished if he didn't. This match did kind of make me think that Chain Whirlers may be better than Trashmaster, because Chain Whirler would have been really nice for clearing those 2 Coatls. So maybe food for thought there. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that little match breakdown. I think it was a really interesting match. I definitely got bailed out by the Game 1 Karakas there. I think that's a good indication of like why I think one main deck Karakas is a really solid addition to the deck. It trims up so many matchups, and it's really, really nice against Uro, which, you know, if put into play on turn 4 or 5, if you have a slower start or a start that was heavily interacted with, like I did, I had a very slow start, you can get run over by Uro pretty easily. So there's lessons to be learned from this match for sure. And I hope I'll be posting this on the YouTube channel, and hope you all enjoyed this little match breakdown. And if you want to follow me on Twitch, see my stream, Goblin Lackey 1, and appreciate you watching on YouTube. And follow me on Twitter. And if you want to support me more directly, you can subscribe to my Patreon, Goblin Lackey 1, basically everywhere. So hope you all enjoyed it, and see you all on the stream sometime.